Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it is.
I thought you said Ed. I thought you were...
Ed.
Yeah. No. Sorry. Sorry for interrupting.
What would the...
She did it.
Ed.
No. What?
Ed.
Yeah.
You were asking a question.
Ed.
Ed.
Very good, that's your name. What's your name?
Ed.
Right. I've made a rod for my own back here.
Yours?
Ed. Should we have a clip?
Ed.
Yeah? Roll the clip.
Tory party have failed for the last 14 years.
Oliver Dowden.
Well, the Deputy Prime Minister stood on a manifesto promising not to raise taxes on working people. It now appears she can't even define who working people are. So I'll give her another go. There are 5 million small business owners in this country. Are they working people?
Yeah. Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know how the shadow Deputy Prime Minister can stand there with a straight face when it was the small businesses, the working people of this country that paid the price of them crashing the economy, sending interest rates scoring. I think he needs to learn his own lessons in opposition.
Oliver Dowden.
Well, I think the whole House will have heard the Deputy Prime Minister disregard 5 million hard-working small business owners. These are the publicans, the shopkeepers, the family running a local cafe. None of those count as working people to her. Now, Labour gave a clear commitment not to raise national insurance. The independent IFS have given their view on this. They say that raising employer national insurance is a tax on working people. Even the Chancellor said that raising employer national insurance was a jobs tax that will make each new recruit more expensive and increase the cost to business. So does she agree with the IFS and her own Chancellor?
Mr. Speaker, I remember the party opposite, what they said to business. What was it? F to business? Whereas this party held an international investment summit last week, which poured £63 million into our economy. We're pro-business, pro-worker, and getting on with fixing the mess that they left behind.
So I think we can take it from that answer that the Deputy Prime...
I would like to signpost the immaculate tie alignment on the Tory front bench.
They're all very nice ties.
Attinement, we might call it.
And the second bench too.
Yeah, no,
Fine.
all blue, strong.
Yeah.
They've thought about the optics there.
Yeah.
I don't think they have thought about the optics.
We are the men in blue.
Because you have there's only men in frame there versus 3 women on the front bench.
But what men they are.
Absolutely. Absolute pillars, titans of British politics.
Dowden, Hunt, Philp.
Masters of the universe.
Who would win in a fight?
Between the 3 of them?
No.
And
both,
me?
No, benches. Benches.
Bench on bench?
Yeah.
Who wins?
Of the 3 people in frame.
I don't even think Rayner needs Reeves. I don't think she needs her.
I think those 3 white boys would get fucking handled.
I reckon Philp would say, "You wait till my father hears about this."
He looks a lot like Jeremy Hunt, which I didn't realise.
No, he doesn't. Don't be xenophobic.
To who? White men.
The humble white man.
Sorry, I'm being xenophobic. The English men. Sorry, they don't all look the same.
When did Rachel Reeves dye her hair back?
About 3 days ago.
Why did she have it for such a short amount of time?
Is that normal?
Well, I mean, look, we've all made a mistake before, haven't we, with our hair?
Do you think that's what it was then? She regretted it?
To me, it
I thought
wasn't.
it looked good, yeah.
I actually thought it was. I thought she might have been doing it in between stages there. It looked like she'd been doing a lift that was going to then get another colour on it. Do you know what I'm talking about, Laura? I thought she was mid-lift.
Do you think that's what happens when a woman does the budget? Because it's never happened before.
You get their hair done.
Do you think it's like something we've
What, like it's a ritual?
like we didn't know this is what happens when a woman is Chancellor of the Exchequer? Her hair goes like that for a bit. You know when someone like goes through like a bad breakup and they just have to like do their hair.
Right.
I thought you were still together.
Oh, very good. Ed.
What about the substance?
Enough
yes.
for the optics. Do you mean the film?
It's an interesting question because we have been asking now since before the manifesto, what do they mean by working people? And the assumption has meant people who are paid PAYE. Those are the people who aren't going to see an increase in their taxes. And I think that's probably been an assumption that hasn't made an arse out of anyone. Those 5 million small business owners that Oliver Dowden, or Ed, refers to there. They're talking about the increase in NI contributions, right? Employers are going to pay, they're going to foot an extra penny, potentially.
I was struck by Ed's answer to Ed.
Yeah.
In that it didn't address the substance of Ed's question.
At all.
It didn't.
That was
At all.
That was a theme in all of our answers.
100%.
Because I suppose that Ed couldn't have said, look, we're going to have to wait and see in the budget how we define working people. Ed had to deflect.
Why does Ed not have an answer? Why don't
Are
we
we
have
going to carry this throughout the whole... Because
Ed's prepared to.
he's just calling himself in the third person now.
Why doesn't Red Ed have...
Yeah, we can do that.
Red Ed, why doesn't Red Ed have a pre-prepared answer? Even if
She did. And it was all attack.
No, excuse me, a definition of.
Yeah.
That, like, if they say this is our definition,
because they can't.
then they're like, right.
But this is the
Why?
problem.
But why can't they?
How
Because
do you
because-
define working people?
Well,
You did. You just did.
You can, but the reason they can't is because they've boxed themselves in. Because over the course of the election campaign, time and time again, they decided to say, we won't pull these three major tax levers and we will not tax working people. And now they are in the unenviable position of either having to accept that they are about to increase taxes on working people, because as Ava has just rightly said, if you increase employer NI contributions, people like those small business owners who do work and are working people will be paying more taxes. So they either have to admit that or they have to say, yeah, we lied during the general election.
Or you say our definition never included business owners.
No, because they can't put a finger up to small business. The markets, they'll get spooked. The invisible hand.
It's been a while. It's been a while since it's been caressed by the invisible Ed.
You're right, though. It has been an effective boxing in, which the Met could probably take a few tips from.
I'm impressed. Wow. You said you didn't want to talk about that.
It was too good to pass over.
Sure.
The Med.
Labour are off strategising with the Democrats. They should be strategising with the Met Police.
I don't think they are strategizing.
Do not get out of the
Democrats.
vehicle until you've effectively completed the box.
Ed knows a thing or two about completing the box.
Absolutely.
73% of it, in fact.
Filling it in. Box Ed in.
Let's talk about the Labour Party going and campaigning with the Democrats then.
Oh, sure.
Should we have the clip?
Is there a clip of it?
Yeah, from Stephen Flynn uses one question every 3 weeks to talk about it.
I suspect...
Which seems like a waste.
I'm just going to... I don't know too much about what happens in the gallery, but I suspect the clips are queued up in order.
Well, it's the next
Is
one.
it the next one?
It's the next one.
Fucking roll the clip, buddy.
Read the rundown, Ollie.
And end the volatility of recent years.
Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In today's spirit of cross-party working, will the Deputy Prime Minister join me in applauding the brave Labour staff members who've travelled across the Atlantic to campaign against Donald Trump?
Mr. Speaker, I'm loving this loving. I don't often get it. But I say to the honourable gentleman is that people in their own time often go and campaign, and that's what we've seen. It happens in all political parties. People go and campaign and they do what they want to do in their own time with their own money.
Melanie Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It was a real loving.
Yeah, they
There
were
was-
all...
You saw her making out... She did this to Oliver Dowden.
Yeah.
She did. Which Laura, Ed, our Gen Z correspondent, tells us is... That's not the correct way to do it, is it, anymore? You guys do it like...
Shut up.
Did she not do that?
If it ain't broke,
Where do you
don't
put
fix it.
Where do you put the... Oh, it's the first finger, is it?
Yeah, it's the first thing.
What are you lot doing?
This is the kids' way of doing it. And she did it with the thumbs.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's
am I
kind of
doing?
like, do you remember on MySpace where you'd all do this? With
Yeah.
your Converse underneath.
Were you guys on MySpace?
Or what was that thing that you used
Bro.
to do like this? What was
That
it?
old?
Do you know the like?
What, like a gang sign?
Yeah, what was that?
Like Bloods, as in Bloods and Crips.
Do you think Bloods actually do that?
I've seen photos of people doing it. I assume so. Could just be like a...
It's so funny, like, obviously just vicious gangs having, like, hand signs that they do.
Yeah, secret handshakes.
It's quite cutesy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Like, it's like the Masons.
even the Mormon. Yeah.
Even the Mormons. They've got a secret handshake.
What's that other? We talked about another secret handshake the other day, didn't we?
Battle of the Gingers, she said as well. Did you hear that? Not in
Yeah.
that clip, but she said it during PMQs. It's the Battle
Yeah.
of the Gingers.
Do you think they like each other?
I would say if you're making heart gestures across the House of Commons chamber, yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, unless it was ironic.
That's unparliamentary.
It's like it's the in-between like,
I don't know if you're even allowed to do that. Are you? Are you allowed to do that in the chamber?
oh, fucking someone tell Ed, because she did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she really did.
So the Labour Party have got themselves in a bit of a pickle.
Well, I think they got themselves in a war.
Those bastard activists, those bastard far left Labour
Those
activists
bastard Eds.
are going to install far left Kamala Harris as president by campaigning in Pennsylvania.
What do you think they get out of campaigning for effectively like the Lib Dems, but in America? Like, it's revealing about their like
Should we
innermost
take a
psychology.
step back a sec? Should we explain
Sure.
what the story is?
Yes, so please, Ava. Sorry. Yeah,
sorry.
please.
Okay, so Sophia Patel, who was on the campaign for the Labour Party, she posted on LinkedIn saying, "Hi guys, if you've been an activist for the Labour Party and you'd like to go and do what you did in the UK over in America, a Democrat can put you up. It's paid for. Da da da." This was going on for a couple of weeks. I think that Jonathan Ashworth might have even had a little.
Is there anywhere John Ashworth hasn't fucking been?
I'd have to check that.
He was at the DNC.
Was he? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I knew I'd seen him in America. Fine. Anyway, so Trump's team have now said, whoa. This is foreign election interference.
This is
You
out of
can't be doing
Russia.
that. Do you know when we say things like Cambridge Analytica or whatever, and we're like, oh, the Russians are in on the election? Well, actually, Tony Diver with The Telegraph, who's based over in Washington, he reckons that the Labour Party could be in real trouble here. That he reckons that actually it does amount to election interference.
Really?
Yeah, he does.
But they're not, there's no money involved. Is that not the threshold?
There is money involved because you have to get the people out there and you have to get the people
But I think
into...
if you're paying for your own ticket, if you're going as an entirely private individual, which
Well, Ed, that's the discussion. Were they paying for their ticket and were they going as completely private citizens? Because so what Morgan McSweeney and Matthew Doyle have argued is Morgan McSweeney went on Labour Party funds. Matthew Doyle went on, it's this American Democrat think tank, Progress Alliance, something like that. Something.
Sounds believable.
What was
Okay,
that?
just go with that.
Anyway, and they're arguing we had nothing to do with Sophia Patel. She put that LinkedIn post up all by herself. It's nothing to do with us.
But has this not been going on for decades?
Right,
The-
so
the
this
rest
is
of the parties-
but this is the difference. This is why it's different this time. They're arguing the Labour Party, like Matthew Doyle and Morgan McSweeney, they went out there all above board. They went in the same way that, say, Conservatives have gone out to appear at Republican conventions, right? But Sophia Patel, she's the one at fault. That's what they're arguing.
think-
They're saying it's a dividing line.
I really don't think she's at fault at all.
But what's the difference, like you said? Like, Farage has given stump speeches.
He wasn't
for
an
Trump.
MP. He is now.
But even then, I don't think.
And these people aren't MPs, that's fair.
But even then, I don't think there's. Unless you're being paid to go, which does seem to be the thing, and I don't think it's out of the question that someone would stump up. Like if you're a real nerd, I bet you'd love paying for an
Of course you would.
airfare to go and campaign in rural Pennsylvania. And
Can-
if you're doing that, of your own, and I think they were being put up in Democrat volunteers' houses. I don't think their accommodation was being paid for. So I think this is just. Believe it or not, I think the Trump are making a big deal out of this, a big deal out of nothing, to accuse. Like, you can see how seriously they're taking it by describing it as the far left Labour Party.
They are far left compared to the Republicans. If you look at,
Compared to the Democrats.
yeah, well, yeah, but But compared to the Republicans, I'm saying in this instance.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's ridiculous when you call them the far left party and you're in the UK or you're in Europe. But when you're in America, actually, you know,
like Castro.
Anyone who says things like, "Oh, maybe we should give them a house if they can't afford one."
I'm
that's
glad that you drew a distinction between Keir Starmer and Castro,
Well, I think Donald
because
Trump should.
I was
I think Donald Trump
confused
should make that
before you did that.
American politics is very confusing, isn't it, Chris?
Rushmore.
American politics, Chris, it's very confusing, isn't it?
What?
American politics, it's confusing.
Oh, yes.
But we've got a solution, don't we?
Solution.
The podcast.
Oh, the podcast.
Exactly.
The podcast. Yes, we've created a podcast called American Friction to help better explain all the confusing, upside-down, weird world of US politics, from crowd sizes to conspiracy theories.
That's American Friction with me, Jacob Jarvis.
US troops.
That's American Friction with me, Jacob Jarvis.
That's right, and me, Chris Jones, and our friend Nikki McCann Ramirez, out every Friday.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
There's 2 George Bushes.
Idiot.
Can I pose another point there, that maybe even if it is decided it's all above board, can I suggest that maybe it wasn't the most, it wasn't the best politicking of all time? Because if you look at, we're coming up to this election, the Labour Party don't know if it's going to be Harris or Trump. Aligning yourself with Harris before an election is a pretty dangerous thing to do, especially when you've got someone like Sadiq Khan, who is Mayor of London, who has been very outspoken on Donald Trump, and you've got David Lammy, who's the Foreign Secretary, who's also been very outspoken. And we've heard from Washington insiders that the Trump administration will not work with the Labour Party if David Lammy is still in situ. And you might say, well, these people are irrelevant. America doesn't care about them. They just hear the titles. They just hear Mayor of London, one of the biggest global cities in the world, has condemned Donald Trump and doesn't like him on record, and so is a very senior figure in the Labour Party. That's all they hear. So they just go, well, we're not working with any of you lot then.
Yeah, but I don't think it shouldn't be incumbent on individual Labour Party members who feel inclined to go and campaign. They shouldn't have to worry about Keir Starmer's relationship with Donald Trump.
But the Labour Party is encouraging them to go. They are in government. The Labour Party is.
I think it's just electioneering. I think it's foreign interference is a buzzword in American elections now.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
And Trump can now throw it back at the Democrats. Like if the sort of I don't know, there was a serious concern for like transatlantic relations, J.D. Vance wouldn't be cracking jokes that he thinks like the first Islamist nuclear armed power is the United Kingdom. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, okay, the Labour Party sent 100 activists to campaign for the Democrats, their sister party, which I'm fairly sure they've been doing for decades. If you were that worried, you wouldn't be cracking jokes like Keir Starmer is effectively an Islamist, would be my read.
Do you know something nobody's talking about, which Trump seems to have ignored as well? The leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats, Alex Cole-Hamilton, is there as well. And if we're not talking about,
I wonder why Donald Trump hasn't spoken about that. Why has he spoken about that?
They're the nefarious foreign power.
I just don't think it's particularly good diplomacy to. Also, if the choice between the two candidates, was actually a stark choice, I don't care if people comment on this and say things like, Harris and Trump are so different. They're really not. Sorry, wake up, open your eyes. They're really not at all.
Wow.
They're not. They're not. They're not. They have pretty. She's got a pretty abysmal. She's not going to do anything in Gaza. The only thing that she's running off of is reproductive health rights.
I think it's
Give me strength. You can't keep using that as the only reason to elect you.
Ukraine?
Yeah, all right, look. Maybe on the Ukraine thing. But look.
Yeah, okay.
Biggest news. Would she even? Or was that a Biden administration policy to keep pushing for funding?
No, it was the big thing in the debate that she kept pushing him to commit to continuing military aid for Ukraine. And her whole thing with him is like, it's surrender.
We got it, Russia. We got a big Russia.
Biggest news for me out the States, Trump's going on Rogan on Friday, apparently.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he?
Is that to counter the Call Her Daddy
appearance
podcast? wave.
Well, his whole thing is
he was on the Logan Paul
his
podcast.
whole strategy is podcast. His whole media strategy is podcast, because he wants low information men. That is one of the reasons why you should treat the polling with like a hint of skepticism, because the people that his campaign are targeting are not people that are typically plugged into political discourse, political polling, political media. That's why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, it's the undecideds who don't engage. It's not that they are weighing up their options. It's
Absolutely.
that they don't look at the news.
It's a political strategy that could bear fruit for anyone on either side of the Atlantic or in any other nation. Like,
yeah, 100%.
You look at turnout here, and the immediate figures after the election were about 57%. I think they, with a little bit more analysis, bumped it up to about 63%. That's still a ginormous constituency of people, 37% of them who aren't voting. And Dominic Cummings demonstrated in the Brexit campaign, if you can mobilise those people, you can make very effective political campaigns. Something to consider.
Yeah. What podcast would that be in the UK? What's like the British Rogan?
Well, Stephen, what's his name?
Yeah, Diary
Diary of a CEO. Yeah.
In terms of audience as an interview format, are you talking about like in terms of vibe?
I think in terms of what would be maybe the best one with the biggest reach and best format for someone to be because I think like Stephen Bartlett just tries to make you cry. Like I don't think that's like a brilliant
Ed
for politics.
Running to his dad. Stephen Bartlett made me cry.
No, they did. They try and make it like as emotional as possible. It's like fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like they try and make it like they all the crew wear black because they don't want the guests to lose themselves, like in the room.
Rest is politics.
Is the equivalent of Rogan.
Yeah.
Big podcast. I think Chris Williamson, the Modern Wisdom podcast.
Oh God, I thought you meant
No,
like
not him. Not him. No. But he's actually in America, but he's English.
What's one that's like not worst mistakes? I've completely forgotten the name of this. The Elizabeth Day one? Is that what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what is that?
How to fail.
How to fail.
How to fail.
How to fail.
Saving Grace.
Is that who's GK Barry? What's her one?
That's Saving Grace.
Yeah, that one.
I think if like Angela Rayner went on that, that'd be pretty nuts.
At the girls' bathroom.
I don't know the girls' bathroom.
Do you know the girls' bathroom?
Is that Sophia and Cinzia?
It is.
I'm plugged in, bro.
Here you are.
Yeah.
You're across the pods.
Is your Ed a big fan of Sophia and Cinzia?
I wouldn't say a big fan, but certainly, near the cinematic universe. Yeah.
Who's Sophia and Cinzia?
Vloggers. Yeah, they were vloggers. They started a podcast.
Don't know them.
Yeah, I mean, dime a dozen these days, pal.
Podcasts?
Yeah.
Too many.
You're right.
That's great.
Should we take some direct action?
Absolutely.
We just did a big UK tour, and you should have seen the sponsorship on this. I tell you, we are in the wrong industry.
Shits and Gigs. Shits and Gigs is massive.
Oh, it's massive in America as
Yeah.
well. Huge American audience.
And a similar sort of like shit-talking vibe.
Yeah, they do massive live shows.
Yeah, I saw that there too.
Yeah. It's nuts. It's like the rest of politics, really. They're quite similar.
Do you think we should get back on topic? Or should we just keep naming podcasts?
It's a riveting listen.
Guys just love sitting around naming podcasts.
It's like that Alistair Green bit, isn't it? Where he's, Well, of course, you know Jimmy, who's my pal, and Jimmy's podcast, Jimmy's Talk Time. Yeah, well, the thing when I was saying to Jimmy, it's like,
Jimmy's Jobs, that's a podcast.
Oh, that actually kills me so much. It's like, can you do that again? That was really good therapy for me. Do that again. The Alistair Green impression.
No!
just pretending to be an annoying man. We don't need to pretend it, but...
You got the genuine article right here. You got two Eds sat
true.
right in front of you.
True.
Is there another clip?
I love that. What is that? What is that with men who like to tell you that they know people on podcasts? What is that?
Well, they don't just like to, it's like the majority of the form is sort of regaling each other with tales. And, I know so-and-so on so-and-so's podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we do that.
Do we?
I think if I mention that I know someone on a podcast, I say I know that person on a podcast. But they don't just chat. It's like it's not mildly interesting. Maybe not.
Maybe for you, Ed.
Yeah.
I'm not
me,
finding
Ed?
this very interesting.
Other Eds don't like it.
No. Should we do another clip?
Yeah.
We're worse off than they are now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Deputy Prime Minister, I watched in horror and condemned the act of October the 7th by the terrorist group Hamas. A year later, I watch in horror as 42,000 people are killed in Gaza, 11,000 of them children, people burned alive, attached to drips, aid workers killed, and now families are starving. Our right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, has said that the world will not stand by and see the lack of humanitarian assistance. If the Israeli government will not listen to our Prime Minister's words, what tangible, measurable actions will we take as the UK-British government?
I thank my honourable friend for raising this really serious and important issue. The humanitarian situation in northern Gaza, Mr. Speaker, is dire, and we need an immediate ceasefire and much more aid allowed to flow in and an immediate release of all the hostages. We have suspended UK export licences to Israel for items which might be used in the current conflict, and this government has concluded that there is a clear risk that items exported to Israel might be used in serious violations of international humanitarian law in Gaza. This does not change our position, Mr. Speaker, instead support for Israel's security, but we will always do so in a manner consistent with our obligations to domestic and international law.
David Simmons.
What do you make of that, Ava?
Well, obviously it comes off the back of the images that were on Twitter and various social media earlier this week. People attached to drips burning alive. It's a bit lacklustre, isn't it, the response to it? It's a bit, the Labour Party don't really seem to want to touch it. They don't know how to touch it. Do
you think it's because they're demonstrated to be impotent?
I think that Keir Starmer really wants a war. I think that Labour Prime Ministers do quite like having a war. No, I'm not even trying to make a joke. I'm being deadly serious. It's very helpful to He was the war on workers, my friend.
there was 4 of them.
All right. Most prime ministers like to have a war because it's a very good distraction from domestic issues, right? This isn't the war that Keir Starmer wants, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. He doesn't really know how to tally the current Labour Party.
Well, I think the reality is like you can call for a ceasefire all you want, pal, but like Netanyahu has demonstrated time and again that not only does he have no interest in pursuing that, he's interested in remaking the geopolitics of the region. Like at the beginning of the conflict, you had all this briefing about Biden and like the American bear hug, that essentially like he was going over there to console the Israeli people, but that in the same way like his love and affection for Israel was also a method of control, and that he was sort of bringing them into the tent to then console them and limit their response and limit their action, which has been demonstrated over the course of the last year to be a complete fantasy. The Israelis have prosecuted the war in accordance with their military doctrine, which is one of escalation, which is one of dominance. That, in and of itself, is like a product of Israel's early history, whereby all of its neighbouring countries relentlessly invaded it. And as a result, the way Israel now protects itself is, if you attack us, we will destroy you. Like, it will be brutal, it will be horrific. And that is what they are doing now in Gaza. And it's what they're starting to do in Lebanon. And I think what Netanyahu is demonstrating is that he's a far more adept political operator than Joe Biden, than possibly any American politician, than any British politician, because he's essentially called their bluff. Like, you can call for an immediate ceasefire as many times as you want. As long as you keep arming him, he's going to continue to prosecute the war in the way that he sees fit. And time again, it's the extraordinary thing about Netanyahu. Like, you think he's run out of political road, and he reinvents himself. And a lot of commentators in Israel were saying that after October 7th, because of the catastrophic intelligence security failure, that beyond the war, Netanyahu would no longer be in office. I think that seems pretty far removed from where we are now. But the long and short of it is, you can say what you can, issue strongly worded statements all you want. You can suspend 10% of export licenses. As long as the Americans keep arming them, they'll keep fighting in the way that they are.
Is this an admission of the now irrelevance of Britain on the global stage? Like, if they're not listening to the UN, if they're not listening to America, why on earth would they listen to
But we haven't said
Britain?
anything.
No,
we've said we'd like a ceasefire.
But even then, if they're not going to listen to those points, there's places there's almost no point.
I do agree with you. I mean, we've got very limited.
They could try harder.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
because the other side of the argument is when those 30 arms export licenses were suspended, the point was, this is a very strong sign that Britain is sending to the rest of the world. And it's like, okay, well, do you want to send a lot stronger one then? Like,
yeah, if he's allowed to act with impunity, he will act with impunity.
Yeah, he sees an opportunity and he's taking it.
There were documents leaked that showed that those peacekeepers had been killed by white phosphorus. Now, when that was happening in Ukraine, that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the first allegation of a war crime to come out of the IDF's actions, though, would it?
No.
It's par for the course now, unfortunately. But it's genuinely like depressing in that they're essentially able to do what they want because they are the US's strategic partner in the region.
Even when you think about their stated goals with this war was getting rid of the Hamas leadership.
Well, it was a bit more than that, wasn't it? It was destroying Hamas.
But that's part of it, and there's been no suggestion of, okay, well, we've achieved this goal.
You can't achieve it.
Shall we start de-escalating it?
What does destroying Hamas mean? Are you going to execute the nurses that work in the Hamas-run health ministry? Like, what? Like it?
Well, they haven't been making that distinction really before.
But the point is, you can't. Like, yeah, fair. It's not.
Their answer is yeah.
It's not a concrete military goal. Like, you don't need to be like the biggest fan of V for Vendetta to understand that like ideas and Palestinian resistance and liberation in the way that it's represented by Hamas. You could kill every single person associated with Hamas. It won't destroy Hamas. Like the idea of Hamas, what it's trying to achieve, will be perpetuated in the same way. Like the most recent, I guess, historical parallel to draw would be to 9/11, right? Where there's a horrific terrorist attack, and so the US goes on this like extraordinarily violent military campaign in Iraq and Afghanistan. What do you do when, with the de-Baathification of Iraq, where you basically say all the Ba'ath Party members, which is essentially the entire civil infrastructure of Iraq, you no longer have a job, you're no longer in the party. You create this ginormous power vacuum. And you give all these military-trained soldiers, you render them unemployed. What happens? The power vacuum gets filled by an Islamist extremist group like ISIS, and a ton of blokes who know how to use AK-47s and don't currently have anything to do with that training join ISIS. You go into Afghanistan and you lay havoc, you lay waste to it. 20 years later, you leave, and the same fucking Taliban are now back in control. Like, it is pointless. It's just it's a cycle of violence. You kill thousands of people, and guess what? All the people that are related or know those people you've killed don't think very fondly of you. Like, it's just so reductive, regressive, and dumb, and it depresses me.
It's also maybe a way for Netanyahu to keep building the road that he finds.
Yeah,
as well. We haven't reached our goal. It's like a forever war.
Yeah.
Once we reach this unachievable goal, but we need to keep me in power to do so. It's also a good way to unify a previously increasingly divided Israeli society as well. Give them an external enemy that's an existential threat.
Hey.
And people will forget about their divisions.
Is that us?
Yeah.
Reckon so.
What a wonderful place to leave it.
Yeah. Cheerful.
Ed, it's been a pleasure.
Ed, been a pleasure.
Ed, been a pleasure.
Ed.
Ed.
And crew Ed.
Yeah, Ed's all Eds. Ed's everywhere. Ed's watching. Ed's listening.
I think the three men in shot at the beginning all could be called Ed.
Us?
No. Ed Hunt, Ed Philp, and Ed Dowden.
Oh, not Ed Rayner, Ed Reeves.
I thought you meant,
and Ed Nandy.
I thought you meant Ed Santina, Ed Dugmore, and Ed Campbell.
Well, you two obviously could. You have the charisma to carry off a name like Ed. You need a certain level of charisma to carry off a two-letter name.
Don't objectify me. Or do. Also, haven't seen a Liberty Advent calendar yet. Just saying.
I'm sure it's in the post.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone did say if I sent a picture of my feet, they'd send it to me. I'm not
so
far off.
So how many calendars did you get?
Two, one for each foot, yeah. Thank you, Ed.
A pleasure, Ed.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.